over and over again. So I picked up my phone and the messages I saw were something very hard to read. And I remember every part of me not knowing what to do and how to respond. What did I read? Here, see it with me. Help! I want to hurt myself. I want to leave. What did I do? Why me? Messages like these are what I read. Shock after shock, this person told me that they were experiencing trauma after trauma in life. Panic mode was my immediate response. You see, I'm a person aware of mental health as we've been exploring it in SAC for several months now. But this, I was not expecting. I was not expecting the trigger words to be the actual words that appear on my phone as the form of a text. I told myself to calm down, but you can imagine, I was not calm at all. I was able to feel that this person told me that this person needed me to say the right words, but I began to worry what those words would look like. Should I say, oh wow, that's a lot all at once? Or should I say, don't be silly, that's not bad? I didn't know. That was when I actually knew I didn't know much about anything in this topic. So then I decided to call a friend I trust. A friend to me who's like a counselor, someone who's older than me, and someone who knows what to say and do. I knew she would be there to help and guide me, but she was at work. Panic filled the room even more. I was left to text this person all by myself. Then I decided to do the next obvious thing. Google and YouTube. Little did I know, I'd discover a whole new world between texting and mental health. So I searched up several starting phrases on Google and found the following options on their search bar. High school's hell, high school's pointless, and high school's nothing like the movies. Now, what do all these have in common? School and student life is tough. In 2014, an article came out that Toronto District School Board, the largest in Canada, was aware of 700 self-harm attempts made by the students during that school year. Similarly, another survey by the Center for Addiction and Mental Health reported elevated level of psychological distress. To add on, a recent project by the Globe and Mail looked into the attitudes and habits of grade 12 students. The result was that students are worried about marks, but also future student debt, job markets, and feeling overwhelmed by the demands of social media. The study even shows that grade 12s are feeling unsafe in a world of bombings, shootings, and attacks on innocent civilians. And there's one important finding. Loneliness and being isolated is a common criteria that leads young people to even consider hurting themselves. Now, let's see what young people connect to the most. According to Stats Canada's survey in 2016, 76% of Canadians own a smartphone. 94% of that were owned by 15 to 34-year-olds, along with 69% of 55 to 64-year-olds, and 18% of those 75 years and older. Now, look at this data. It is quite obvious that the younger audiences are message agnostic, using a variety of ways to communicate via their mobile devices. About 100% of youth from 15 to 24 use the internet on a daily basis or even own their own phones, which is not affected by where they are from and what their household income is. According to Vanier Institute of the Family, ownership of cell phones and smartphones are as follows. 24% of students in grade 4, 52% of students in grade 7, and 85% of students in grade 11. More than 1/3 of students say they even sleep with their phones just in case they get a call or a message during the night. Interestingly, 1/5 of grade 4s report that they do the same. After knowing how prevalent phones are in our lives and how texting is a more comfortable way teenagers communicate, it makes sense to have an innovative idea like Crisis Text Line. A non-profit organization that provides 24/7 counseling through texting. It uses complex data analysis to predict how serious the condition is based on text received. Now, I'd like to think of it like how our hospitals are organized. When we go to Trillium or any emergency room, what happens? Well, we go through a chain of different lineups in order for the nurses to determine which patients need to be checked first. Specifically, patients with a serious heart condition need to be checked first due to their seriousness of their symptoms. A similar system takes place when a person texts crisis text line. An algorithm is put together for those in crisis to get immediate help fast. Initially, this wasn't the case. In 2013, when the program started, the method was tedious and long. Counselors had to read every single message and make an on-the-spot decision on who gets immediate intervention. This is when Nancy Lublin and Bob Philbin, the chief data scientist and the co-founder of Crisis Text Line, came up with a solution. They, along with their team, put together an algorithm using their knowledge of psychology, data collection, reporting, and analysis to make sure data leads to strategic actions. So what happens when a person texts 686868? Number one, the texter is added to the queue the moment his or her first message is sent. Then they wait to be connected with the counselor. Number two, the counselor engages in a conversation to detect if the texter is at any immediate risk of hurting themselves. If the texter expresses hurting themselves, they tend to have a specific plan and has the materials or the space to carry out the plan and has a time frame. If the time frame is 24 hours or less, it is deemed as a texter who's at imminent risk. This is when the counselors try to de-escalate the situation. Number three, if of course the counselors feel like the texter would carry out the plan, emergency services will be contacted. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is a wonderful service, but isn't it American? Yes, it is. Well, thankfully, Canada has been seeing its benefits, and Kids Health Phone, the only nationwide counseling and support service for youth in Canada, has partnered with U.S. Crisis Text Line to provide for the first ever free texting service. How exciting! But there are steps that take place before it becomes a nationwide medium. We are still going through the process. On February 16, 2018, a test trial took place in Manitoba. The press release about this can be seen here. As of August 30th, 2018, University of Guelph students now have access to the new Crisis Text Line powered by Kids Help Phone. This free service offers immediate support to all University of Guelph students by text message with the Kids Help Phone volunteer crisis responders. It has expanded to many provinces and territories. On November 7, 2018, service's national launch took place all over Canada. We have a lot to thank Catherine A., the Kids Help Phone president and CEO. In Canada, we have been a great leader in mental health safe space, but to now be partnered with an organization that has pioneered an algorithm for texting-based counseling is a great next step. To see this image is heartwarming, especially after everything I know now. Being educated and looking into the new exciting Canadian project has made me become a wiser texter. It has also made me more aware of my surrounding and my peers. My conversations through texting have become more thoughtful. Like, wow, I can speak in full sentences online and not short phrases like, wow, oh, huh, huh. I wrote phrases like, thank you for sharing this with me. Is there any way I could help? As a society, let's become socially responsible of how we respond back. We all grew up with a constant lesson. Think before you talk. But as we are now in a digital world with an increase of youth suffering from mental health, a new lesson must be taught. Reread before you text. Our words matter when a friend reaches out to help. Guiding them into appropriate help is important. Mention how a crisis line is being put together, is non-judgmental, and can cope with our negative thoughts. So just remember, if there are more than 13,000 conversations with this crisis line and many teenagers who keep their thoughts to themselves are now opening up, then texting has the potential of saving a life. So let's be wise and guide people properly with words. Thank you.